So this is a specific style and aesthetic that we'll be working on. So to begin, we're going to start by opening up a new background, File, New. Once again, we're going to make them 17 by 11. I just clicked on that since we went over that last exercise. And these are my hotel sketches with color. So now I have 17 by 11. I have my 17 by 11 white background. And now you're going to place in both of your images from your hotel suite sketches. So you can use the drawing that I've provided for you, or you can use your own to do this. I recommend using your own, but if you want to practice on mine, that's fine too. It's located under the module. So let's go ahead and place that in File, Place Embedded, wherever you saved your sketches. I've been saving them in downloads. There's my nice quick sketch right here. It's a JPEG versus a PDF. You can bring in either a JPEG or a PDF. It doesn't matter, but remember that the PDF is a bit better quality. So I'm going to go ahead and rasterize my layer. So remember, when you see this circle with the slash, that's indicating you're going to have a tough time doing anything because this image has not been rasterized. So last time I told you you can right click to rasterize the layer, so you can do that, or you can go to the layer drop down and go ahead and rasterize from there. Right click, rasterize layer, and there you go. All right, so we are on your instructions and we've opened up a new 17 by 11. We're working in RGB color and we're going to do 11 by 17 so that we can fit both of your drawings on one page, and this is going to look really sharp. I'm going to show you two different ways to kind of create the look. I'm going to create a more free form look of adding color here by using my lasso tool, and this I'm going to make look a little bit more controlled and formal, and I'm going to use a border. All right, so to create your border, go ahead and use, I don't know, maybe a size 8 pencil, between 5 and 10 depending on what your drawing looks like, and I'm going to draw a border. And I'm going to start here, and I'm not going to worry about crossing over edges too much. I'm going to click on my first point, click on your mouse, hold down the Shift key on your keyboard, and drag. Click your second point. Click, hold down your Shift key, and drag. Click, hold down your Shift key, and drag. And what I want to do is I want to click over this point. It's a lot easier to select areas when you don't have gaps. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit. Control Z if something doesn't work out. Click, Shift, and drag. And you see that I missed this here. So if you're doing your own, it's a lot better if you click over this area and this area to create your border. So what happens is when you use your select tool, it leaks through that gap. It's going to leak through here and leak through here. Control D, select. Versus if something is enclosed, like this area here, and you click on it, it just highlights that area. So I'm going to hit undo. You can go edit, undo. So that's going to undo all my reselects, or I can hit Control Z, and that's going to go backwards, and I'm going to get rid of that line. So next time I draw my line, I'm going to try to enclose this area and this area. Too far. Control Z. Why don't I just start here? And then I can continue on. How's that? All right, so I really don't love, you know, I would want these to be a little more equal. So I'm going to use my eraser tool or my rectangle tool. And I'm just going to take that across. And I hit delete on my keyboard. I'm hitting delete on my keyboard. I want these to be closer to the same. Delete. Control D on your keyboard to deselect. So you can draw those, extend those. You can even just use your eraser tool at 100% and shape off some of that. So a couple things I've noticed is right here, some of my drawing is kind of extending below my border. It doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, you can either use the eraser tool. So I'll just show you different ways. You can use your eraser tool, hold the shift key down and drag. Or you could have used the rectangle marquee tool to make that nice and tight. So again, it's up to you. But now I've enclosed my drawing and I'm going to clean up because I didn't clean up last time. But you've cleaned up your drawings already. But if there's anything you don't like in these little sketches, you can fix those. Again, remember, because I have a white background, I'm going to turn that off. I'm erasing my drawing on my drawing layer, and it's because there's a white background that it's showing white. So for those of you putting the black background, it's not going to look like that. I'm going to keep my drawing at the top of my layer panel. I'm going to place a new layer between my background and my drawing. To add a new layer, at the bottom of your screen, there is a square with a plus sign, which says, when you hover over it, create new layer. Select that, create new layer. Now double click on the text, and I'm going to call this color walls. Create another layer while you're here, and call it color floor. Create a new layer, color sky. You don't have to have all of these layers, but it just makes cleanup and deleting a lot easier. What I want you to notice is that there is a gray and white checkerboard. The gray and white checkerboard indicates that these layers are blank. It has nothing on it, not even white pixels. Your drawing has white pixels with black ink marks, and then the background is completely white. Click on your drawing. You're going to click on your drawing and you're going to hit multiply. What that allows is, so moving from normal to multiply, and I'll show you a little bit later what happens. But basically when you hit multiply, it allows to see all of the nice colors below it in the layers below, but it also keeps the nice black drawing on top. So I'll show you what that means in a little bit. So we're going to start with the walls. And we're going to start with some of the easy walls. Please find the paint bucket tool. So we're just going to use the paint bucket, which drops solid color in first. And make sure that all layers are checked up here. We're going to drop color in at 100%. That's what that means, 100% solid versus some transparency. The mode is normal. And we're going to drop color right in here. And let's just take a look at that. So I'm on my walls. And how color works in Photoshop is first you select the area. So I'm using the eyedropper to select the area. This is part of the back wall as well. So hold down your Shift key and select that area as well. So this is the area that we're going to use the paint bucket to drop in color. So real simple technique. We're not doing too much today. We'll do so much more throughout the semester. But next you're going to use the eyedropper tool to pick the color. Pick the area, pick the color. So right now, if you look down at the top here, it's selected as black. We have the eyedropper now under grayscale dropdown that you can select a nice light gray, and you can drop that gray into this area. So we selected the area, we used the eyedropper to select a light gray, and it's shown here that we've selected the light gray, and now we're going to drop the color in with the paint bucket. So click on the areas, and now we've selected the areas, and we can hit. We have a nice gray. If you don't like the gray, if it's too light or too dark, you can select that swatch, maybe make it a little darker, and hit OK, and that will change it there for you while it's highlighted. Once you have it the color that you want, hit Ctrl D for deselect on your keyboard. Next, let's repeat those same steps, and I'm just going to make this area gray, and the base should be gray as well, or a darker color, but we're just keeping this real simple. Some students, I think, go a little overboard on this assignment. The look is to be kind of just very simple, just simple blocks of color. Control D to deselect. Now I'm going to select this back wall area. This time when I use my magic wand, it's not going to escape the gap, and it's going to select this area a little better for me. So let's see how I did. Much better. So you can hold the Shift key down and select between kind of that light fixture if you want to do it right here. And I can bring that same light gray in again and bring that in. Bring that in, bring that in. So you're seeing that it's not letting me place the color in right here. I can add that color a couple ways. I can go back to my magic wand, hold down the Shift key, and simply try to select that area again and drop it in, or as I'm going to show you, you could use a paintbrush in a minute. So it looks like I'm pretty good, and I'm going to hit Ctrl D to deselect. So very quick. So let's see what happens when we're going to move to the floor. Let's see what happens when I use the magic wand to select the floor. Pretty good. Pretty good, but you know, you're seeing that it's kind of missing a lot of those areas. What I'm going to do is just show you a different way of doing it. Go ahead and use the rectangular marquee tool and just select the floor area. So this is just a different way to do it. You're going to find whichever way works best for you. So you're on the floor layer now, and we're going to go in just with a paintbrush instead of the paint bucket, and we're going to go ahead and just brush in the color. We're going to go over some edges and things like that. It's going to look a little messy, but we're going to then go in with the eraser tool and clean up. So go ahead and select your paintbrush, which is located, right click on your mouse behind the pencil. And for this look, we'll do other looks, but for this look, I would use just your hard brush at 100% opacity. And we're going to just, I'm going to make even my brush a lot bigger like this. We're going to go in and we're going to brush in some color. So, I mean, we could go in and try to be very neat, but I think it's easier just to erase our overspray, basically. So right now the color is gray. So again, we've selected our area. We have to use the eyedropper to pick a brown. Now, brown is, I think for you guys, is located under pale. So if you go to your pale drop downs, you can find some nice browns. If you take a look, I have all types of colors because I've downloaded from another class. I've downloaded the Sherwin-Williams paint colors. But you can find yours a nice brown under the pale. So I picked my brown. I've selected the area. I'm going to use my nice paintbrush, and I'm going to hold down on my mouse. If it's too dark, Ctrl Z. I kind of liked it, but let's see. Remember, I can lighten it up a bit. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to draw. I don't have to worry about the edges because I have my marquee tool around it, but around the furniture, if you want to be a little careful, you can. But we're going to go back and clean that up. Again, remember you can hold the shift key down to draw straight lines, point to point, and angled lines. So I'm going in to the best of my ability. I'm coloring in, not worrying too much about overspray. There, zoom in if you want. Okay, so now I've painted in my floors, and I want to do a little cleanup on my floor layer with the eraser tool. So I'm going to use my eraser tool again at 100%. Hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, roll and zoom in, and I'm just going to clean this up with the eraser tool. Right, just go in, clean up. Here it oversprayed on the back wall and onto the chair a bit. Use the bracket keys to quickly make these smaller. Clean up the legs. It doesn't have to be perfect. Look, I missed an area right there. I'm not going to worry that, but you can always just go back in with your paintbrush and fill that in if you want. So there, the ottoman got a bit of an overspray. You want to make this very nice. I'm hitting Ctrl Z because I went a bit too overboard there. So just now I'm gonna roll back. You know what type of perfectionists you are and how you want your drawings to look. Just remember that my style is a bit looser. Ctrl D to deselect. So now I have a little bit of blush of gray on my walls. I have wood on my floor. I've cleaned up, looks pretty good. You can still see all of the nice line work. So now just so that you can kind of understand how Photoshop works, I'm going to click back on my drawing and I'm going to change it from multiply to normal. And what you're going to see is it's now basically the drawing is covered up, what's below it. So at normal, you lose all of that pretty color below, and at multiply, you can still see it. That's turning it off. You lose your whole drawing and you just have the color below. Kind of a cool look too. All right, here we go. Next, very simply, we're gonna just learn some more tools and we're going just to paint some blue in this sky area here. So again, you could use the marquee tool to highlight areas. I mean, that is fine. So you could spend the time to do that. But I'm just going to go ahead and do ctrl D to deselect. And I'm just going to show you a different way just so that you can play around for the first time with the polygonal lasso tool. So click on that. And I'm just going to click on this area to receive color. And so it takes a while to practice working with this tool, but you click, release, click the next point, click release, click the next point, click release, click release, click release, click release, and then enclose. And now you've highlighted this area. So next I'm going to pick a light blue, like maybe under pastel. So select the eyedropper, pick a light blue, and now you can see it's light blue. This color is too bold for me, so I'm just going to make it a little lighter. And I'm just going to use my hard paintbrush, and I'm going to paint that in. And then I'm going to go in with the eraser and just erase the areas that I want to keep, like this cloud here. I'm going to make my eraser really small, and I'm just going to bring in some white highlights on an angle. Click, hold down the shift key. Click, hold down the shift key, for example. So make sure you paint the other side as well. I'll just do this. This way is a little harder because there's a gap. So I wasn't able just to quickly go in there, so play around with your poly tool. Highlighting that same area. And I'll go in with the same blue. Some blue. And some blue. Control D to deselect. Now you are done with this side. Great. I don't think you need any more. Let's see, something that some students like is, let's use the eraser tool, and this time we'll use a soft brush and we'll play around and we'll add a nice glow here from your lamp. So go back to your wall layer because we're going to make the glow on that gray paint. So go back to your wall layer, so there's gray paint right here, pixels, and select your eraser tool. This time, instead of a hard brush, select the soft brush and make the opacity like 30. And let's make that, click on your drawing, let's make that really kind of big. like this. And watch what happens. Again, I'm on my wall layer that has the gray paint. I'm going to click in this area a couple times, and I'm going to start washing away the gray paint. So I'm doing it very softly. If I lift it up a little more, it'll be quicker. But do you see now I'm creating a glow around that lamp? So I've softly washed away some of that paint and given that a nice glow. So maybe you want to do a little bit of that to the sky too. So I'm just erasing, clicking on my mouse. You know, maybe you don't want it to look so solid blue. Very nice. You're done with your hotel suite if you so choose. Next, let's create some more layers for working without borders. So I do think if you're going to put drawings side by side, pick which one you want to do. I like both the looks, you know, I don't have opinion one over the other. But for the next one, we're going to make a new layer, and let's call it bedroom floor. And we're going to bring in that same color brown wood, and we're going to put it on an angle on the floor. So grab your poly tool, and we're going to, it should follow the angle of your perspective of your floor. So here's the kind of the angle right here. And then you can see this is the angle that your ottoman is falling on. So when you draw in your lines, let's go ahead and try to follow the angle of the floor and the perspective. It's going to come up here, and then it probably goes back here a ways, and then here's the floorboard. I'm trying to find my edge. And I did a poor job. Ctrl D to deselect. So what's happening here is I'm not able to find my first point to enclose. So let's try that again. It's right here. I'm going to come out. I'm going to come down. Right? So I've selected the area that's going to receive this color brown floor. So up in my memories, I have my recent colors here, which you can, so I have my blues, my blacks, my grays. So I have all the colors that I used in the previous drawing. If for some reason you forgot what that color is, you can also just click back on the drawing over here, and that brown will appear again. So I just went and picked that same brown. So you can bring in color with a paintbrush. You can bring it in with the paint bucket, but I'm just going to go ahead and use my brush again. It's at 100%. And I'm going to fill in. Lovely, having some problems. I'm having some glitches. Let's try a paint bucket. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Now let's see if I can go back to paint. 100%. So now my paintbrush is working. So I do like the paintbrush for this reason, because I feel like I like going over the lines. I just think it looks, you know, you don't get all of these highlights that you do with the paint bucket. So I do like going over this. Let me see, what's my flow? That's okay. Usually 30 is fine. I think it's just lagging a bit. That's what's happening. So I'm going to go right by the fringe. I'm going to go up in the fringe, come up here, cross over. And then I'm going to go in with the eraser tool. I'm going to go in with my eraser tool, and I'm just going to zoom in, and I'm just going to come down with some of that shag and clean up with the eraser tool. Oh, I see my problem, everybody. My problem is I was using a soft brush. So I was using a soft brush, and that's why I wasn't getting those nice hard lines. So I'm just going to go back again. I have my hard brush, and now it'll be a little bit more deliberate. So that was the problem. I was using a soft brush, which is just a flowy and a lot softer, rather than this direct look that we're trying to achieve for this style of drawing. All right, so next is eraser tool. I want a hard brush. I want it to be very deliberate. I want it to be at opacity 100, right? So make sure you change that back, because the last time we used this, we were putting a little bit of glow. And go in and clean up at 100%. I'm on my bedroom floor layer, so I'm erasing the brown of the floor. I'm not erasing my drawing. Remember, for straight lines, you can click on a point, hold the shift key down, and hold on a second point, so I get a nice straight line. Otherwise, you have to start being pretty careful with your mouse. And remember, if you mess up, you can hit Ctrl Z. It'll take out the last movement. You can zoom in if you are very particular. You can zoom in, make your eraser really small, and just be very accurate by holding the shift key down, and then very, very easy coming in and erasing. So depending on what you want to do, I'm not that way. So I'm just going to do it quickly. It is up to you, however precise you want to be. You know I'm not that way by now. You can do the same thing, get that shag over here. Clean up where it shouldn't be under the bed. And then when you're done, zoom out, take a look. That's fine for me. Ctrl D, deselect. In some of my examples, I went through and I added just another darker color underneath the bed. So pick a lighter brown and then a darker brown. And then you can put a darker color on top if you want. Now you'd have to go out back and clean up everything, so probably do all this first. But you can go back in. It's kind of a cool look, where there might be shadow, like under the nightstand, under the bed. I'll I'll just, for example. You can go in, I'm not going to do it beautifully, but you can go in and add the darker color. Again, do this first before your cleanup, so you don't have to do it twice. Control D on your keyboard to deselect. And that's how I got some of that look in, if you like that look. Next, we'll add a layer for bedroom walls. And just remember, because I don't have a border, you can't use the wand because it just selects way too much. So you can just draw it in using very easily, just kind of drawing it in and then erasing it. Or you can use the tool such as this. Let's start here in the corner. Add some color. So that protects, to make life easier for me, that just protects the outer edges, and then I can go in and fill in the color and then erase again, or try to catch in other areas in between. So I'm on my bedroom walls, use that tool to pick your gray. If you don't remember what the gray is, you could pick the same gray, and then go ahead and draw it in. I'm at 100%. So to see how it's going to protect the top, and then I can go in, hold the shift key down and make some nice sharp lines. Hold the shift key, select the 2 points, and this is going to just go in great. Control D deselects. I could probably select this area here and come in with some color. And then use the eraser tool to clean up. Repeat the steps here, right? I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We'll do your cleanup. Control D to deselect. Pop in a little bit of blue, however way you want to do it. Control D to deselect. And then the last thing, let me zoom out a bit. The last thing is if you want to just add some basic shapes. So you can create your own shape. So let's say you want to draw some funky little shape on your bed spread. I'm not saying that you do, but if you did, it's kind of a cool look. I don't want to be on my layer anymore. You want to make sure that you're on the right layer. So let's call this shapes. And we're going to place a color. So you can create a new color like orange, and you can bring that new color in. You can play with the opacity so that it's not at 100% and throw that color in. Ctrl D to deselect. We also have some basic shapes such as lines, ellipses, polytools. So for example, if you wanted to throw in an ellipse, and I'm going to fill it with blue instead, and it's at 100%, so maybe I want to change that opacity as well. So right now let's make it less, and so it overlaps. So you can play around with that. You can add a layer, and I'll call it greenery. And you can pick a color green. That's a little too minty for my taste. And you can throw in some, just the indication that maybe there's some greenery here. Maybe on the nightstand, maybe right here. You can change your brush size, make some sharper lines. Maybe it looks more like a cacti that way. All right, so I'll zoom out. Forgive me for not seeing very well and sometimes hitting the wrong keys there. So right now you have just a real nice sketch where you can, clean it up as much as you want, add as much color as you want, but just a real nice, I think, very professional sketch to present to your clients. These look like something that the hospitality industry would definitely give to their clients as preliminary ideas. You don't want to give too much specifics, right, until everyone signs off on the dotted line. So these are great suggestions of what the space will look like. Your assignment is to place both of your hotel rooms on either side, and you will want to, I think, choose, do you want them both to be a border, or do you want them both to be more of this freestyle design? Once you're done, please save this as a Photoshop drawing that you can use for the future. You can then save it as File, Save As, and this time it's going to be saved as a Photoshop drawing to print. Save. So you've saved it twice. First, you've saved it as your Photoshop drawing with all of these very nice layers that you can go back to at any time and adjust the layers, change the colors. But now what we're going to do before we print it is we're going to flatten the image. This makes the image smaller, and it makes it a smaller file size. So it's easier to print, to transport, to export, etc. So now all of those layers have been consolidated into a single layer. Again, I went to the Layers panel drop down and I hit Flatten Image. And so everything is flattened. And so you no longer can go back to all those layers and manipulate them. That's why we're saving it twice. So here is your drawing all done, and you're going to save it as File, Save As, and go ahead and save it as an image, JPEG. Save. And we're going to save it at 8 high resolution. You can type in some text if you want, or just leave it as this. Text is right here. Right, so you can type in, hotel suite presentation. And change the size from 12, let's say, to 48. That's really big. But you get it. And then you can move that around, change the color. Right now it's in green because that's what I had selected. And you can then save that. So save it as a JPEG, and if you want, just for practice, you can also save it as the PDF, the Photoshop PDF, and hit save. Saving it, converting it to a PDF, which is fine for me. So thank you all, and I hope you enjoyed this exercise. I look forward to seeing your hotel suite drawings.